Good afternoon, everyone. I hope this message finds you all safe and well on this gorgeous autumn day. We're so grateful that you're making this event a priority to hear this informative candidate forum presented by Medical Associates Clinic and Health Plans, Midwest One Bank, TH Media, and Q Casino. Today's event features the candidates and incumbents running for Dubuque County Supervisor and the State House and Senate seats that represent our district. Those joining us today include incumbent and current board chair of Dubuque County Supervisors, Mr. Dave Baker, candidate Harley Pothoff running for Dubuque County Supervisor, incumbent Senator Pam Jochum running for re-election to Senate State District 50, candidate Jennifer Smith running for Senate State District 50, incumbent Representative Chuckeisenhart running for re-election to State House District 27. We also have incumbent Representative Shannon Lundgren running for re-election to State House District 57. We have incumbent Representative Lindsay James running for re-election to State House District 99. Candidate Pauline Chilton running for State House District 99. Incumbent Representative Andy McKean for State District House 58, and candidate Dr. Stephen Bradley running for State House District 58. Welcome to all of you. We are so thrilled that you are with us today. Before we get started, we'd like to recognize today's sponsors for the event: Anderson Window and Door, Cartograph, Collins Community Credit Union, Digital Dubuque, Envision, Fidelity Bank, Forge Social, Grand River Medical Group, Grand River Center, Holiday Inn, John Deere Dubuque Works, Mercy One, Stonehill Communities, Town Square Media, Unity Point Health, and U.S. Bank. Thank you all so much for your support. Our sponsors are so important. I'd be remiss if I didn't take this time to remind everyone now more than ever, support local, buy local, love local. Can't stress that enough. And now, with no further ado, it is my great honor to introduce today's moderator, former chamber chair, longtime friend to the chamber, the CEO of Medical Associates Clinic and Health Plans, one of our ultimate sponsors, and truly just a wonderful individual and a gentleman, Mr. John Talent. John.
Hey, thank you, Molly, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Dubuque Area Chamber of Commerce October membership meeting. As Molly mentioned, my name is John Talent, and for a few more weeks, I am the CEO of Medical Associates. Anyway, Medical Associates believes in connecting you to the care you need when you need it so you can live long and healthy lives. And the chamber involvement and support does the same for our business community, connecting chamber members to the care and advocacy they need in order to thrive and prosper. The chamber invited all the candidates and incumbents to today's forum so we can give members the opportunity to learn more about their priorities and, if elected, how they would choose to spend taxpayer dollars. We will hear from all the candidates that have joined us today for a maximum of 4 minutes each. In the interests of consistency, we have asked the candidates to cover the following 3 subjects in their allotted time. First, an introduction of yourself as candidate for office. Second, why are you running for elected office and what are your major platform priorities? And third, if elected, what is your plan to help businesses through and post-COVID economic recovery? Now, audience questions can be submitted via the chat feature and will be addressed after all have presented. Justine will hold time signs to indicate time remaining. Now, first we will hear from candidates for Dubuque County Supervisor. And first up is incumbent and current board chair of Dubuque County's Board of Supervisors, Dave Baker. Following Supervisor Baker will be Harley Pothoff. Supervisor?
Okay, thank you. My name is Dave Baker, and I'm the current chair of the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors, position I've held as chair for the last 2 years. I do want to talk a little bit about my past. I'm a lifelong resident of Dubuque. and thus Dubuque County. My family, I have my wife Kathy. We've been married 43 years. We have 3 daughters, 6 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. My education, graduate of Hempstead High School, and I was a note. I was early in Hempstead's history. It was a newer school, and I was fortunate to play football for legendary coach Bob Timmerman in his first year at Hempstead High School. And we won the Mississippi Valley Conference Championship, led by All-State and who I believe to be one of the best players ever from this area, Tom Rusk, who went on to play at Iowa and set the all-time tackles record there. Tom will be happy when he hears that. My work record, I worked at the former Dubuque Packing Company until I decided that's not what I wanted to do with my career, but that's what my dad did for 41 years. I drove a cement truck for Flynn Ready Mix Concrete in Dubuque and Epworth plants. Then I was elected as the Teamsters business agent for the Dubuque Teamsters, and I was reelected 8 times for 3-year terms. And in 2016, I ran for office for the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors and was elected in the general election. My wife and I are former small business owners. We had a bar and restaurant called Bake's Windsor Tap back in the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s. And so, again, I'm currently the chairperson and believe that I have provided steady leadership during this COVID-19 pandemic, and with an emphasis on testing. And at first, when this started, testing was in short supply, and now I think we've reached a good point in the number of people being tested. Now we need to get the results back faster, and we need to continue working on that. Other issues is that I have put an emphasis on is making sure that working with Tom Berger from our emergency management services for Dubuque County, that we have appropriate supply of PPE or protective equipment for our healthcare providers and for our citizens. And also we'll need to focus going forward on contact tracing to get us through this pandemic. Some notable accomplishments in my first term, and a reason that I want to continue to run for office and hold office. We have reduced the Dubuque County overall tax levy each year for the last 3 years. That's the first time that has been done in decades. And that's real money back to our taxpayers, currently over $5 million and growing. And for approximately 10 years, the previous boards of supervisors have kept that levy over $10. And we now have it set at $9.57. And we're very proud of that. Sunnycrest Manor, I have protected. I can't actually see that sign. Can somebody help me? Is that one? Stop. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Supervisor Baker. And next we have Harley Pothoff running for Dubuque County Supervisor. Mr. Pothoff, and also Senator Joachim will be on deck.
Okay.
Harley, you are muted.
Sorry about that. Is it on?
Yeah.
Harley Pothoff, born and raised in Balltown. I am a Dubuque County resident. I've been a Dubuque County resident my entire life. I graduated from Leo High School in Holy Cross. I went to NICC for a year for welding and graduated with the welding certificate. 1987, I was hired as a deputy sheriff for the Dubuque County Sheriff's Office under former Sheriff Leo Kennedy. I stayed with the Sheriff's Office for 33 years. Over 20 of those years were in supervision as a road patrol sergeant or the road patrol captain. In those positions, I worked with the budget with the sheriff and chief deputy. When Sheriff Joe Kennedy came on, we had a management meeting with the captains and chief deputy and sheriff. And Joe wanted us to think outside the box on ways that we could save money. We came up with several ideas that we implemented over the course of the 4 years that Sheriff Kennedy was in office. We returned between $1.7 and $1.8 million to the county just by implementing ways to cut costs and save the taxpayers money. I want to bring honesty, integrity, transparency, professionalism, and a conservative voice to the board. I care about how our tax dollars are managed and spent. I want to continue to move forward with our infrastructure, work with the chamber and with Greater Dubuque and the city of Dubuque to try to draw more businesses into our community. We currently have around 9 colleges in Dubuque and Dubuque County where we're teaching and training several hundred young adults every year, and we don't have the capability to keep them here to start their families and help our community grow. I care about highway safety. I was a technical investigator for the sheriff's office for 20 years, I think, where I investigated traffic fatalities. That's an issue that's close to me. I want to make sure that we can keep the highway safe. Basically comes into the infrastructure also to make sure everything's kept up the way it should be. Water quality issues. I manage a feed store in Sherrill for Dave's Feed Store. So I deal with farmers continuously. I've been here for over 20 years. I was working 2 jobs with the sheriff's office and managing the small business here. We need to keep the nitrates and phosphates out of the water system. And working with the farmers is one of those ways that we can do that. If elected, I would like to work on applying for the federal grants and state grants to try to develop a UTV, ATV trail or snowmobile trail through the county, which would bring in some out-of-state money to help our economy. We need to have a positive economic impact out of this to get things moving in the right direction in the post-COVID. I think my time is about up. I should cover it.
Thank you, Mr. Pothoff. Just a reminder to the audience that you can ask questions by submitting in the chat feature. We will go over those after all the candidates have presented. Next, we will hear from candidates for state elected offices. And first up is incumbent Senator Pan Jochum, running for re-election to Senate State District 50. Senator Jochum.
Thank you, John, and thank you, talented John Talon, for your leadership in healthcare. And I wish you all the best in your retirement when it's just around the corner here. So thank you, John. I also want to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon, and to thank all of you for the honor of representing you in Des Moines for the past several years. I also want to thank all of the candidates who are on today for throwing their hat into the ring and running for public office. You help make the system work. So thank you to all of you for running for public office. I think what you're going to hear today is that many of us share the same priorities, whether it's living wage jobs or healthcare or more funding for education, early childhood, worker rights, voting rights, the list goes on and on and on. The differences, however, lie in how we're going to achieve those priorities by finding common ground. And I have worked my entire life trying to do just that, trying to find that common ground to start solving problems. And we have had some successes, and some of them show up in our own community, whether it's Crescent Community Health Center, the B Branch Creek restoration and our flood mitigation projects, the Iowa Health and Wellness Plan, the Iowa Public Information Board, the creation of early childhood education. All of those things I have worked on through the years and want to continue doing that. I've always had a tremendous passion for justice, whether it's economic, social, or environmental justice. And when my daughter Sarah was born, she was born with a disability, and she probably taught me more than anything else in my life. And my belief in civil rights and human rights became very personal. And I am very grateful as a woman that I had the experience of unconditional love from that child for 41 years. And I will never give up on that. What we have found out in recent months is that the COVID-19 crisis has exposed many shortcomings in our many systems, economic, healthcare, public health. And that pandemic has not led just to a health crisis, but an economic crisis. And I believe that the first order of business we need to do as a state legislature is going to be addressing how to help Iowa families and businesses that have been hit the hardest by this pandemic get back on their feet. And until we do that, the economy is not going to fully recover. Right now, Iowa has the 7th highest rate of new infections in the entire country. 1,489 Iowans have died from this virus, and it is 15 times higher than the number of people who died from the flu last year in the entire state. 103 people died of flu during the entire flu season last year. And we're sitting here today with almost 1,500 Iowans who have died in 7 months. The headline in Sunday's Telegraph Herald, I clipped it because it said, "More jobs gone for good." It went on to say that most of the 11.5 million jobs employers added in recent months consist primarily of temporarily paid off workers that are being recalled to reopen restaurants and retailers. There are still 10.7 million fewer jobs than before the pandemic. And in September, those permanent job losses reached 3.5 million. According to the Iowa Tax Foundation, I'll bring this down to home now, down to Iowa. From March 21 to April 11, Iowa's economy lost an estimated $1.6 billion in overall economic activity, based on an estimated loss of 243,237 jobs, $557.8 million in wages and salaries, and $73.7 million in self-employment income. So we have our work cut out. So here's just a few ideas on what we can do in this next coming session. Clearly, we have some issues to do with Iowa's unemployment insurance system. We need to continue tweaking our existing programs to make sure that more capital is available for our small businesses. And I think I'm already out of time. Sorry about that. We'll continue.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. And I need to apologize to Jennifer Smith. I didn't give you the warning that you're next up, so I'll try to not do the same going forward. But next up, we have candidate Jennifer Smith, who is running for Senate State District 50, and on deck will be Representative Isenhart. Jennifer.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to, first off, thank everybody for coming and listening to the candidates. We do all of the candidates do love Dubuque and really and Iowa, and want to make sure that we are here to represent. Just a little bit about myself. I have a bachelor's degree in mathematics and with a minor in philosophy and a master's and PhD in economics. So I understand how economics works and how things work, how to move the economy forward. One of my areas of expertise is actually labor economics. So I understand, and I have worked with how to make sure that workers on companies are able to work together in order to keep the economy moving forward. I also worked for Country Insurance and Financial Services in the Statistics and Actuarial Department. So I'm not just an academic, or have been in the academic world my whole life. I actually did work in the what's called the real world, so to speak, for 5 years. And during that time, I got a lot of experience in the business world. I moved to Dubuque in 2009 because of my job at Loras as a college professor. And why I'm running is for 2 reasons, because I want to give back to this wonderful community and this wonderful state that accepted me with open arms when I moved up here. I moved alone by myself from Illinois with nothing but me and my 2 dogs, who were my children. And Dubuque just opened me and gave me a place, and I really feel like I'm home. And I have a niece and a nephew of whom I want to show that if you feel that there is something calling you, that you need to step out and get into it, and you need to put your money where your mouth is. And I feel I saw some things that I wanted to be there to represent the citizens and to give back to my community. So that's why I decided to run. My platform is basically on 3 things. I'm concerned about the education of our students. As a college professor, I see what my students are learning or what they're coming in with, and they are missing some basic skills. Their reading skills, the reading is okay, but their writing skills are kind of lax in terms of they don't understand the difference between formal and non-formal. They are not real good at their basic math skills and their critical thinking skills. So I want to try to strengthen those. I'm concerned with jobs. I want to make sure that we are able to match the skills that our employers need with the people that are here. And a couple of things is through apprenticeships training, through expanding the Work Ready Iowa programs to make sure that we have the jobs matching what is being demanded out there by the employers. I'm also concerned about quality of life issues, and that is across the entire spectrum, from healthcare to life to end of life issues. So all of those things are concerning. Now, all of those also do kind of then tie in with the COVID aspect. I have concerns there. First off, one of the things that we need to do for our employers and for our business is open up as soon as we possibly can. And by doing that, I think we can give the guidance on how businesses can open up, but businesses are not going to be able to survive, and we are not going to be able to get our workers back into the workforce and being able to take care of their families if we don't open up the businesses. Yes, we need to be concerned about COVID, but we need to make sure we open those. And not only that, but we need to give assurance to our businesses that once we do open with these guidelines, that we're not going to come in and shut them down again and change the guidelines on them in the middle of things. That creates a lot of uncertainty, and businesses become very questionable as to what they're going to do. I think a couple of things that we can do is look at some low-cost loans if that's what we need for the businesses to be able to pay for their capital, as well as look at tax cuts so that the businesses are able to move forward and know where they're going in the future. And according to my timer, I've got about a second left. All right? And I talk fast, college professor.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we'll hear from incumbent Representative Chuckeisenhart, running for re-election to State House District 27, and on deck will be Representative Lundgren. Chuck?
Thank you, John. My screen just blanked out there momentarily. Hopefully that won't happen while I'm speaking. I want to observe that this is probably the first forum of the chamber I've attended as a legislator that does not involve Barry Gentry. And Barry would be very disappointed if I didn't bring a prop. So I want to show you that I have this bottle of wine, Stonecliff wine, that I'm going to drink in honor and thanks for Barry's long-term commitment and service to Dubuque. And we miss him very much, especially at the Dubuque night, I'm sure. I want to start with your last question. I think following up on Senator Jochum's comment, I think the COVID-19 pandemic has showed the vital connection between public health and our economy. And our public health system has been, in my opinion, hollowed out at the national, state, and local levels, and we need to figure out how to reinvest in that if we're to be able to sustain our economy from these type of disruptions that I think are going to become more common in the future. So our role as state legislators primarily is to make sure that public services that businesses rely on are sustained going forward. That's going to be difficult because we can't deficit spend like the federal government can. So we need to make sure how to make state government services reliable, and we can listen, as we always have, to the needs of businesses and take those unique needs that we think state government can address with us to Des Moines and do the best we can to address the unique circumstances that various business sectors are in. Many people here may remember that before being a legislator in 2008, I left Dubuque Area Labor Management Council, where I served 17 years as the executive director, worked with our local employers and unions on various issues, including workforce development, healthcare, education, and others. I think that's where John and I first met when we started working together on healthcare issues in the community. So I feel capable of being a vital contributor towards some of those issues down in the State House. My particular niche, however, is in the area of natural resources, environmental protection, clean water, clean energy, climate action, local foods, public access to our outdoor natural resources, soil health, etc. I've served, believe it or not, for most of my time in the legislature on the Agriculture Committee. A lot of people tell us that the divisions that we see in politics and government are Democrat versus Republican. I believe nationwide they're more urban versus rural. And if there is one thing that connects urban and rural Iowa and urban and rural America and the world, it's the issue of food. I'd really like to see our Agriculture Committee be renamed the Food and Agriculture Committee. And I think there's a lot we can do in terms of partnerships, state, federal, and local, to start developing a food system that delivers better nutrition for us, integrate that with our healthcare system, and have virtuous benefits for both water, climate, soil, and public health. And I'm looking forward to working with some of the stakeholders in Dubuque to learn about how we can move that needle forward. I've read a couple books recently: Food Fix by Dr. Mark Hyman, The Fate of Food by Amanda Little. I encourage other folks to do some reading on these issues. I think there's opportunities for us at the local level to make a difference. And once again, involving the business community, make Dubuque a pioneer and show how collaboration can have positive benefits and impacts going forward.
Thank you, Representative. Next, we will hear from incumbent Representative Shannon Lundgren, running for re-election to State House District 57. And following her, we will hear from Representative Lindsay James. Shannon?
Shannon, you
I
are
think
currently
you're
muted.
here.
Gotcha. Am I unmuted?
You're good.
All right. Well, thank you, John, and thank you to the Dubuque Area Chamber of Commerce for doing this every year, whether it's a candidate forum or it's just a follow-up to what legislators have been working on during session. We do appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody listening in today. And I echo the same sentiments as previous speakers about the candidates and how it's really great to see a wide variety of people running for office here in Dubuque County. Again, for many of the same reasons, but different solutions to solve some of those issues. About me, I am seeking my third term in the Iowa House. I grew up in Dubuque, graduated from Wahlert High School and Midwest Travel Institute, and my family and I own two small businesses, a restaurant, which I personally have some opinions in regards to how things during COVID-19 have been handled, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little while. And then I also own a travel agency, and I'll tell you what, right before I came on to this call, I was dealing with a group of 13 whose flights were canceled, and it's certainly not been a fun industry to work in this year at all, but nothing has been about 2020. I ran to help reduce regulations and burdensome taxes on small business owners and family farms, because there are a lot of things that keep us all up at night. And I think we can all relate to that, whether we're an employee or we're an employer. And I think the small businesses are the backbone of our communities. And, you know, we're the ones that are really doing what we can and doing the right things. There's not a lot of red tape involved in our operations. So guess what? We pay over minimum wage. We try to provide benefits for folks in our community because they're our friends and neighbors that are working for us. That really led to, and really that was why I decided to run for office in the first place, is to really help out our small businesses and family farms in the state of Iowa. When I got to the Iowa House, I put down this little committee called Human Resources, which, you know, when you think human resources, what do you think? You think business operations. And fortunately for me, it is all about health policy in the state of Iowa. And in 2 years, I became the chairwoman of our Health Human Resources Committee in the House side, and have really enjoyed working with our providers in the area in regards to setting health policy and moving things forward so that providers have access to what they need from the state. And then first and foremost, that our patients in the area are getting the care they need when they need it. With a special focus on brain health, which I think affects everybody, especially now with this pandemic. I think we're going to see we talk a lot about economics and how that is going to be affected. We talk about how our businesses are going to be affected, how taxes are going to be affected. But quite honestly, we have some definite mental health crises that we're starting to see. And there was just a recent article, it might have been in today's TH, about the uptick that they're seeing in brain health care. And that's quite concerning. You know, my platform is to continue to advocate for small businesses and rural Iowa, and making sure that we have all of the access to everything that we need in rural Iowa, and that includes broadband expansion. I think with COVID, we understand that people we have a larger employee pool. If people can work from home in rural Iowa instead of in Des Moines, they can work where they live. You've just opened up a whole new job pool of people that can fill jobs that we need to fill here in the state of Iowa. And I think that's really going to be kind of exciting. We just need to make sure that they have what they need at home in order to dial in and make sure that they can do those jobs. I want to just say a few things in regards to the economic recovery with COVID. Again, I mentioned brain health, and we don't talk enough, I think, about that crisis that we're going to face. I will agree with Jennifer Smith in regards to making sure that we get our communities open and our businesses open. We have been open as restaurant owners since day one. We did carry out, we did it safely. We follow all the guidelines for the Iowa Department of Public Health and the CDC in recommendations for how our businesses should operate. I think we can do it safely, but if we start to lose jobs and we start to, again, it's going to go into that trend of healthcare. So I'll end. I think that's my notice, but thank you.
Great, thank you, Representative. Next, we'll hear from incumbent Representative Lindsay James, running for re-election to State House District 99, and following her will be candidate Pauline Chilton. Lindsay?
Thank you, John. Thank you to the Chamber and everyone who is joining us for being a part of this important conversation as you prepare yourself to vote on November 3rd, or even better, vote early. So I have had the privilege of serving you as your state representative over the last 2 years. I've just finished my first term in state office, and I have to say it was a wild, wild journey. I decided to run for office after 2016. My daughter, who was 6 years old, she said to me, "Mom, she's concerned that we would have to build a wall." Now, regardless of how you feel about immigration, I think all of us can agree that there are many walls between people. There are many barriers preventing people from thriving. And I felt deeply committed to being a voice to help advocate to remove those barriers, to bring down walls that separate people. I spent my career as a college chaplain working with different faith communities for the sake of actually bringing people together across difference in order to do good, in order to pursue the common good and further the common good. I thought after the 2016 election and all of these, seeing all the polarizing politics, I thought, well, maybe this skill set as a chaplain, bringing people together across difference, could translate into politics. And it certainly has. I actually am the co-founder of Iowa's first, in Iowa's history, Iowa's first bipartisan, bicameral caucus. And we are working on issues. Actually, we came together to do some work on renewable energy, as well as early voting and voting safely and securely. So very proud of some of the efforts that we've done there. But it is certainly my faith commitments that have really brought me to be passionate about economic justice, racial justice, environmental protections, making sure that all the decisions that we're making in the legislature are decisions made with our kids and the future generations of Iowans in mind. My college professor, I went to a Catholic college. The college president said on the first day of school, if you take the world's population and you line it up from the wealthiest person in the world to the poorest person in the world, you would see that disproportionately, white Americans occupy the front of that line. And then he challenged us to say that, we don't take enough time to stop and turn around and look at who's behind us. And we certainly don't ask the question of why. Why is there such a discrepancy of wealth in this country? That I believe is due to some systemic injustice that is built into our systems. And so I am passionate about rooting those out and advocating for people who are poor, oppressed, pushed aside, and living on the margins of society. And that is directly because of my faith commitments. And that's a little bit about my platform, just a small business piece, because I know that this is what you all are facing, and I want to speak to that as well. 99% of Iowa's businesses are small businesses. So that's a company of under 500 employees. You know that, this is your world. And we need to have a robust, thriving small businesses in order to have a robust economy. So, targeting state incentives to small businesses, making sure that Iowa companies get first crack at state contracts. With the COVID, we need to continue to invest in, targeted tax incentives, as well as small grants, and making sure that small businesses have appropriate loans. So we can get into more of that. I'm certainly honored to be amongst you all, and look forward to more conversations as we go forward. Thanks, John.
Great, thank you, candidate. Next, we'll hear from candidate Pauline Chilton, who is running for State House District 99, and following her will be Representative Andy McKean. Pauline.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm honored to have the opportunity to run for the District 99 seat and to hopefully represent Dubuque at the State House. I am the daughter of a Vietnam veteran. My husband is a Gulf War Air Force veteran. I've lived in Dubuque for 19 years. I moved here in 2001. I'm the mother of 4 children, 3 of whom are adults, and my youngest is 17. We thought we were going to be empty nesters, and COVID happened, and all of our children are back home because of campus closures and things. And I've been a realtor for 15 years. My education background has been primarily with a focus on chemistry, biochemistry, German, Japanese, Brazilian, Portuguese. And in my business, I've had a chance to actually take some business courses through real estate. When I was in school, I've had a chance to do some research. I had an interest in clean energy, and I did some research on ethanol, gasoline blends, and that led to some communications with Amoco. I've had a chance to use the laboratories at the University of Chicago, Argonne National Laboratory, and to compete at city, state, and national level, and have won numerous awards for my chemistry research. And I've had a chance to do an internship in a biochemistry laboratory in a hospital in Chicago. So my community involvement and my business have led to my interest in politics. It showed me how politics directly impacts our everyday lives and our businesses. And I'm running because I feel like it's my calling. I believe in the American dream. I believe that anyone can do anything, no matter where they came from or where they started out in life. And I would like to protect the future of the American dream. So my platform is education, economic growth, and quality of life. I really do think that keeping a well-educated, well-trained workforce will continue to help our state to grow. And as far as businesses, I would like to promote programs that help startups gain access to capital, help existing businesses to expand and improve. The COVID-19 pandemic has created an immense collateral damage with forced business closures, and that has created an incredible negative impact worldwide. And so for our state, I'd really like to look at ways to help our businesses to be able to rebound, putting policies in place for the next time something happens, making sure that there are stockpiles of medicines, medical equipment, and essential supplies for our state. You know, our small businesses have been very much impacted by all of this. And, you know, we need to make sure that we're limiting the liability on them, so that people aren't taking advantage of this pandemic and making the businesses pay more than they've already paid for what has happened. And, you know, just looking at our tourism industry as an example, people aren't traveling, they're not taking as much vacations, and that has hurt businesses and the workers. So definitely want to look at policies that are going to help the businesses. And I would be open to questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Next, we'll hear from incumbent Representative Andy McKean for State House District 58, and following him will be Dr. Stephen Bradley. Andy?
Well, greetings, John, and thank you, everyone. My background includes 71 years of life in which I hope I have, through both professional and personal experiences, gained some wisdom and common sense. I've had a long and wonderful marriage. I've experienced the ups and downs of raising 4 children and helping usher adulthood. I've experienced the heartache of having a severely disabled child. I've helped hundreds of legal clients through some of life's greatest challenges, and I've assisted many constituents in cutting through bureaucratic red tape and solving problems, including many local small businesses that have suffered severely during this pandemic. I'm running for office because I care deeply about our state and its future, and I believe that I can play a part in making a positive difference. My priorities include quality education, help for our senior citizens, fiscal responsibility, criminal justice reform, family farm preservation, natural resource protection, mental health reform, and child care. In the area of economic development, which I know is a focus of this group, I do want to mention that I'm perhaps somewhat different than some of the folks here in that I represent an entirely rural district. And I'm very concerned about the challenges that rural Iowa is facing. I'm very proud to have been appointed to the governor's Rural Empowerment Board, and I've been on the committee dealing with broadband coverage, which is a very important issue. And I also am proud to serve on the Jackson County Economic Alliance Committee, and we've been doing some very exciting things in Jackson County for rural economic development in our small communities. I think it's very important, whether you are in a rural area or an urban area, to be dealing with workforce development. And I'm very excited about some of the cooperative programs that we're seeing between our high schools and community colleges in helping our young people prepare for the jobs of tomorrow. I also think a very important ingredient in economic development in both rural and urban areas is childcare. We need to do more to make childcare more accessible and more affordable. and we need to partner with business to create some opportunities. We need to expand the child tax credit. And also we need to take a look at eliminating some of the regulations that stand in the way of developing successful child care programs. In addition, on behalf of my rural district and rural Iowa, I've worked very hard to promote greater use of telemedicine, to equalize transportation funding for our rural school districts, which has been extremely unfair until recently. I've been glad to see some progress in that area in the last 2 years. Also to make certain that rural Iowa gets its fair share of economic development funds. And we made a good start on that last year. And finally, to make it more possible to have healthcare, particularly mental health care, more accessible in rural areas. I represent a very rural district, as I said before, all of Jackson County, most of Jones and the Cascade area. But I'm glad to have a small portion of Dubuque County, and I've enjoyed very much getting more acquainted with you folks at the Dubuque Chamber of Commerce. So thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed this event immensely. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Representative. And next we'll hear from candidate Dr. Stephen Bradley, who is running for State House District 58. Dr. Bradley? I think you're on mute still.
Unmuted.
Looks like you're self-muted, Dr. Bradley. Oh, looks like you should be good to go now. Perfect. Oh, you clicked it again. Try one more time.
How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank you, John, and Dubuque Area Chamber of Commerce. I've been a small business owner and a dentist for 35 years. As a private practice owner, I understand the importance of managing finances and wanting my tax dollars spent responsibly. Iowa thrives under Republican leadership. Our fiscally conservative policies keep our economy growing. Liberal policies mean more spending, more taxes, more regulation, and more government involvement in our businesses and lives. I was raised with common sense, conservative Iowa values. I grew up working from a paper route, baling hay, construction. I understand the value of hard work. I'm no novice to politics. I served as the president of the Iowa Dental Association and was chair of the Iowa Dental Board. I was appointed to that board by Governor Chet Culver and reappointed twice by Terry Branstad. As chairman, it was my duty to oversee dentists in the state of Iowa and work with legislators to pass laws that protect the health and safety of citizens of Iowa. This past year, one of the bills I introduced in 2018 was signed by the governor. My beliefs are a strong agricultural economy. Iowa's entire economy prospers when farmers are successful. I believe in the Second Amendment, quality education, less government control, and lower taxes. I am pro-life, and I support our police forces. I believe we should open up our schools and our businesses, and I support Governor Kim Reynolds in the management of the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. And thank you to all of our candidates. We appreciate each of you for taking the time to be here today. And in particular, we are thankful for your willingness to serve and all that you do for us. If anyone in our audience has a question, please put it in the chat box and we will try to get to as many as we can. And candidates, if you are answering an audience question, please keep your answer to 1 minute. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, John. Thank you to all of our candidates. Our first question, it is for whatever candidates want to answer. If you guys could all turn on your cameras if possible so I can kind of call on you so we don't talk over each other. The first question is, Invest Iowa was introduced last year, a 1 penny increase in sales tax, which would fund water quality issues and quality of life projects. Do you think this will be part of the 2021 session, and what is your position? Does anybody want to tackle that first? Shannon, you are muted, but I saw your hand go up first.
All right, well, am I unmuted?
Yes, you have
All
1
right,
minute.
great. So yes, last year the governor put forth the Invest Iowa, which is the 1 cent sales tax increase. Right now, it would fund, as we work through it, it would fund water quality projects. It would also help fund brain health issues, or brain health funding for our mental health regions, which we have several of them throughout the state. Right now, those mental health regions are funded through property tax levy. And so in essence, what we'd like to see is that remove from the property tax levy, drive down that levy, and then in turn, use that one part of that 1 cent sales tax to turn around and help fund mental health projects in the state of Iowa. So of course, I was very supportive last year. We were working feverishly on it. There was a lot of different ideas that were coming, both from the House and the Senate and the governor's office, and then the pandemic hit and things kind of got stalled. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight, because anytime we don't want to raise taxes, but we are increasing on a sales tax, we need to make sure equally on the other side we can lower taxes in one way, shape, or form. So it is a good program.
All right,
And I
thank
can
you,
add
Shannon.
my perspective on that. I was appointed to the subcommittee in the Ways and Means Committee on this bill. It never came up. I think the short answer is it depends on the results of the November 3rd election. I think it will be coming back in some form or fashion, depending on the results. The thing that people need to understand with any tax bill, it's going to pass. It will only pass with bipartisan support. We were not approached in the last session, at least in the House side, by our committee chair, Representative Hine, to participate in a discussion on what it might take to bring Democratic votes to the table. There are a lot of good features to the proposal. There were some things causing angst. We never got to the point where we would feel like we could negotiate the details in a way that would make bipartisan passage of that kind of package possible. So I think regardless of the results on November 3rd, we need to think in terms of how do we bring everyone to the table so that it passes in a bipartisan fashion.
Thank you, Chuck. Andy, it looks like you had your hand up. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. I think the devil's in the details, of course, but I do commend Governor Reynolds for bringing this proposal before us because it covers a number of very, very important areas, water quality, mental health reform, tax reform. And I think these are very, very important issues that deserve a full debate. And I'm hoping that we'll see some progress in the upcoming legislative session. I think there's some interesting possibilities here, and I think it could help move forward a number of areas that people feel very strongly about.
Thank you, Andy. Anyone else like to? Oh, Jennifer?
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about this one specifically, but I can tell you that I do agree with Shannon in that with this COVID issue that we've been having, there have been a lot of concern with our mental health and our brain health issues. And so I do think it's important that we definitely look at this to make sure that our brain issues and our mental health issues are taken. I know I've personally seen that with my own students, and people in the community are feeling very isolated. So we need to make sure that this is a proactive way in order to handle and be prepared for this uptick that we're going to have.
Excellent.
I have to look at it a little bit, give you a pull on that.
Anybody else want to tackle this? Oh, Dave, was that you waving?
Yes, thank you. From the county's perspective, we definitely support this. I believe it was originally proposed that that's where the children's mental health funding would come from. So at the county level, we've seen, and no offense to our state folks here, but we've seen no money for the children's mental health. But we're expected to put a children's mental health system in place. So I think the 1 cent would be a good balance. Would support the environment and conservation issues, but just as important would be the some funding source for children's mental health. I think everybody agrees that children's mental health is something that we really need. We got to figure out how to pay for it, and it can't be an unfunded mandate dumped on the counties by the state. Thank you.
All right. Pam, did you have your hand up?
Oops. Okay. Actually, I don't know what more I can add. So I agree that we need to find some common ground, because when you're going to raise sales tax by another penny, it's going to take real bipartisan support. So with some of the angst, as Chuck has mentioned a little earlier, was some of the changes and how the formula changed in this bill on the distribution of that penny in terms of water quality and environmental issues. And that of course caused some great concern, because it was very different than what the voters had approved back in 2010 when they created the constitutional amendment and the trust fund. Certainly using part of that for mental health services, especially children's mental health, is one option to help fund that system, but not the only one. So I'm hoping that when we go back into session, that we really have a more bipartisan effort to try and find a solution to deal with water quality, the environment, and our mental health system, especially for children. So thanks for asking. It was a great question.
All right, and it looks like we have time for one more question. Just give me 1 second to pull it up. The importance of broadband has certainly been underscored over the past 7 months. What are the plans to enhance and expand access? Who would like to tackle that first? One brave soul. And if this is something that takes a little bit more thought, what we can do is send you, because there's a couple other questions we won't have time for. I can just send those out and we can share those with everyone who's been registered for today's events, because it is 12:57 and I know there's not a lot of time to give quality answers, but if anybody wanted to give it a shot.
Well, I would just say the importance of this issue has become highlighted by the COVID-19 pandemic, with schools all over the state having to go, at least in part, many of them online, and the capacity to do that in rural areas is very challenged. I think we need to be looking at that capacity, because I think that has the opportunity to create balance in terms of economic development as well between our rural and urban areas. So I think Democrats support keeping this high on the legislative agenda.
I'll chime in on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree that rural broadband is going to be extremely important. The pandemic has definitely highlighted many things that are needed in our society, and connectivity is one of those things that's extremely important. We need to make sure that our farmers and small businesses that are a little bit further out, the people that are working from home, are able to have access to connectivity. And so I think that working with our rural cooperatives, doing some public-private partnerships to get those connections done is going to be important. And making sure that when people move outside of the city, even if it's just a mile out, that there's no problems with being able to get service.
Excellent.
Just very quickly, I'll just add, there's a couple things we can be doing. One, of course, is the Iowa Innovation Fund. I know that Chuck serves on that Innovation Council. And what I wanted to say in my opening comments, and I got cut a little short because I got too wordy, sorry about that, is that what we need to be doing is making sure that we are looking at our current economic development programs, and some of them, because of COVID, are going to be underutilized in the coming year. So I think temporarily we could look at some of those programs that will be underutilized and shift some of that money into some infrastructure needs. And broadband is one of those infrastructure needs that is desperately needed in the state and in this country. But it's already been mentioned, the importance in our education system, economic development, all of that. The other thing is there was discussion and it got cut short because our session got shortened because of COVID. And that was the creation of an Iowa Rural Development Tax Credit and Fund. So that might be another option on what we can start looking at in terms of moving some money around to make it all work again.
Just very briefly, if I could just add one quick word. I do serve on the Governor's Rural Empowerment Board and am on the broadband committee. And we are working on some rather detailed recommendations for the upcoming session to help expand broadband coverage. So I think it will be certainly an issue that we will be talking about in great depth once the session begins.
Excellent. Well, that is our time for today. Thank you all so much. Molly, I invite you to come and wish everybody well and sign us off.
That concludes our first ever virtual candidates forum, and no offense, but I hope we never have to do it virtual again. I'd much rather see you all in person, but our candidates forum once again was brought to you today by our presenting sponsors, Medical Associates, Clinic and Health Plans, Midwest One Bank, Dubuque Casino, TH Media. I'd like to thank our moderator, Mr. John Talent, the CEO of Medical Associates Clinic and Health Plans, Justine Paradiso, who has been our organizer and producer. Of course, all of our candidates who continue to serve us so well and throw your hat in the ring. Thank you for your willingness to run. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our members that have joined us. And before we leave today, I'm asking everyone to make sure that you practice the most important exercise in our democracy, vote. You all be safe and well, and you have a wonderful Thursday. And once again, on behalf of the Chamber, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Molly.